Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Rita. I'm a performance improvement specialist. I'm a public health professional. I'm also a business and life coach. And I'm here today with another video. And today we're going to talk about outcomes and outcome measurement. Thank you for joining me this morning. So, outcomes. What are outcomes? Outcomes are the benefit or the value of your services or whatever it is that you provide to your clients, your program clients. You could be a business, you could be a not-for-profit organization, you provide some sort of service to your clients or your customers. What is the value that your clients receive from your services, from your products? That is your outcome. And so an outcome is applicable to any type of program, a business, profit-making, non-profit-making, government, whatever. An outcome is always present because it's the after effects of your services, or after people receive your products and they use them. What do they gain? What is the difference that your program or your product or your service has made? That is what we call an outcome. Okay, so when we're talking about outcome, it's always in the perspective of your customer or your client. So an outcome is not from your perspective as the business owner, or from your perspective as the government, or from your perspective as an individual who's providing services. An outcome is always from the perspective of the user of the services, the recipient of the services. From their perspective, that is an outcome. So something else about outcomes is that outcomes are very specific to your program, your product, your service. So no two programs may have the same outcome. They may describe it as the same, but it's really subjective. It's based on the value that your program or your business or your service is adding to that individual. And so that's why I say it's subjective, because it's from the perspective of the person receiving the service, and it's also specific to them. Okay, and so there are categories of outcomes that we have, or there are types of outcomes that we have, but the outcome itself is value to a particular individual who received that service, who used that product, and the value that it provided to them. Okay, and so sometimes we also confuse outcome measurement versus outcome evaluation. So an outcome evaluation does a deep dive to show you which particular factors contributed to particular outcomes that you're seeing in your clients or your customers. So an outcome evaluation will tell you how much each of the activities or outputs contributed to the outcomes that you're seeing in your clients or your customers. Outcome measurements just gives you a high level insight that clients or customers are achieving outcomes, or clients or customers are realizing some outcomes from your services. It doesn't tell you which particular activity is responsible for this level of outcome being seen in the clients or your customers. That an outcome evaluation will tell you that. But the outcome measurement will just tell you, give you some insight that outcomes are being realized, outcomes are being achieved in your clients or your customers based on the activities that you're providing. So the two serve very different purposes. They're very different, and they're conducted by different people. Sometimes if program evaluators who do outcome evaluations, they can also do outcome measurement. Other times performance measurement specialists who do the outcome measurement will not be able to do an outcome evaluation. We need a program evaluator for that. And so they're related, but they're different. Okay, I just wanted to clarify these 2 points. So why is it important to measure outcomes? So I'll get into that. It's really important to measure outcomes because you want to know whether your services that you're providing or your products are making any difference. If they're not making any difference, why are you providing these services? You don't want to provide your services or your manufacture products and sell them if they're not making any difference to your customers or to your clients. So outcomes are what tells you that a difference is being made. So you want to know that. That's why you need to measure outcomes. So it's important to measure outcomes because it will tell you what is happening after the service has been received by your client, after the person has used your products. What difference did it make? And so that information is important feedback for you to know that your efforts are worthwhile. Otherwise, you may not need to continue with those efforts or those activities that are not producing the outcomes that you want to see. So that's why it's important to get into measuring outcomes to provide you with that feedback. And so how do you measure outcomes? So there's a book here that I would recommend. It's by Dr. Robert Penna. It's called The Outcomes Toolbox. Please go and read this book. Purchase it, have a copy for yourself, read it. It is really good in providing you with information on how to measure outcomes. I've used it for a few years now, and I really like it. I recommend it to people that I work with, programs or services that I consult with. That is a book for them to have, so I recommend it to you as well. So how do you measure outcomes? It's very simple to start thinking about outcomes. And the first step is to think about outcomes. And a simple way to do that is to ask you a series of questions, very simple questions such as, what difference are we making for our clients? And if you can articulate the difference that your program or your services or your business is making for your customers or your clients, you're already thinking about the outcomes. So it's as simple as that. Or if our business or program didn't exist, what would we see? So that's reverse thinking. If your program or your business didn't provide this service or didn't manufacture this product, what would you see? And so that helps you to think about, wow, because we're here, we're seeing this. So this is the difference that our product is making. This is the difference that our services are making. And so once you have that and you can articulate that value that you're bringing to your customer or to your clients or to your program recipients, then that is an outcome to focus on. So that is where you begin, is by thinking about it and articulating the difference that your service or your program is making for your clients or your business recipients. So I know with business, outcomes are a little bit not that easy to come up with because it's about products, and once people use the products, they either like it or they don't. And if they like it, they come back and buy more of that product. Or if they like your services, they come back and get more of your services. But it's important to go beyond that step of just people buying your products. But are they using your product? Do they like your product? Why do they like your product? So your customer is the best person to tell you about the outcomes. You're not the one who's going to think about the outcomes and come up with them and start measuring them. It's very important to include your customer in this, because remember I say that an outcome is always from the perspective of your customer. So if you don't talk to them, where are you getting these outcomes from? You're assuming that this is why they like it, or you're assuming that this is the value that it's bringing to them. Those are all good assumptions. Test them. Go to your customer, go to your client, ask them, why did you like this product? What about it made a difference for you? And what is that difference it made for you? So when you ask your clients and your customers and you collect all this feedback, you have very good information that is telling you something about your outcomes. And once you have that, you move on to the next step, which is measuring the achievement of those outcomes. So from all the clients that you've asked, what percentage of them said it really made a difference for them? And they articulated a particular difference that was common to all of them. What percentage of your clients say that? Or what percentage of your business customers say that? And once you have that, you can begin to look at what particular aspect of your product is responsible for that outcome. And once you have that, you can capitalize on it, you can build on it in order to maintain that outcome or that difference is making for your clients, or make it even better, because now you have this information that is very helpful for you, providing that feedback in order for you to improve upon that part that is making your program or your business stand out. So that is really the value that your business or your program is bringing to people. So it's important to find out about those outcomes, because your business improvement is going to be based on that. So it's not really about focusing on the things that they don't like, or focusing on the things that are not going well and improving that. That's a quality improvement. That is important too. But for outcome measurement, it's really about the difference that your product or your services are making for your customers or your service recipients or your clients, and working on that and improving that. So the baseline will be for you to just chat with your clients or your customers, or find a way for them to get that feedback to you, whether it's through a survey, whether it's through a conversation after they receive a service, and then find out what are those things that they liked, why they liked those things. The important thing is, what difference did it make for them? That is the most important part of that conversation. That is where you're getting your outcomes from. And then look at how many you talk to, what percentage of them say this particular aspect made a difference for them. That becomes an outcome for you to focus on, and then now you can start to build strategies to improve on that particular outcome, because you're already doing very well on it, and you've already identified that your clients find it very important for them. So if it's an important outcome for them, then you need to focus on it, right? And so that's how you get into outcome measurement. So it doesn't have to be this big, elaborate strategy. You can just start small from the things that I've mentioned. If you're an entrepreneur and you don't know how to start, that is a place to start, by talking to your clients, finding out if they liked your service, what about it they liked, and then focusing on that, and then you can build an improvement strategy based on that information. And so that is outcome measurement. Why is it important now? If you're like me, it's July 2020 and we're in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. Why is it important to think about outcomes now than ever before? The age of outcomes began in the last, I would say, decade. We're now in the age of outcomes, where programs, businesses and organizations are beginning to focus on outcomes. So before that, we've had an evolution of how performance is measured, or how work is measured over time. So after the Second World War, people were going back to work after the Great Depression, and industries were beginning to pick up. Work was measured, performance was measured based on the amount of work that was done, and productivity was measured based on outputs, so how much was being produced, and that determined performance. If a lot of output was being produced, then the performance was determined to be very high and very good. And so management or leadership at that time focused on the workers that were able to produce high outputs, and they focused on those workers and how are they able to produce these high outputs. And so the focus was on the workers who were producing very high outputs, right? So performance was measured in that way. Over time, in the 1980s, 70s, 80s, 90s, around there, things started to shift. And with that, performance was measured based on time. And so that's when quality improvement started to really take root. Motorola, Toyota started to put in quality improvement programs, and they noticed that time was an important factor. And so if you measure performance in terms of time, then you're really doing a good job. You can improve performance based on measuring the time that people are putting into different activities. And so if you control that time, you're able to improve performance. And so rather than focusing on high output and the workers that are producing this output, the focus became on time, and how do you maximize time in order to improve output, or to achieve high performance. And so focus became on time management, really. And so looking at how much work people are producing in a certain amount of time. So how much output are we getting per hour, or how much work is someone producing in a day, in 7 hours, or in a shift. And so the focus on time became really amplified, and we had people measuring payment or remuneration based on time. You're going to be paid per hour. And so we still have that now where people are paid rates based on per hour or per amount of time that is put in, because that time is being equated to perform high performance. So an hour's worth of work is worth this much. And so that was the focus. And so management and leadership focused on how much time employees or staff are putting into a particular project or particular work. Focus was on what time are people coming in. Are they coming in late? Are they coming in early? Or what time are people leaving to go home? You need to do your time. So the focus on time was really huge with that era of and way of measuring performance at that time. But in, I would say, 2000 to 2010, things started to shift towards the age of outcomes, and that is where the focus on time started to lose its value, and people started to focus more on the outcomes, on what was being produced, what difference was being made. If someone spent 2 hours on a particular piece of work versus 1 hour, what was the difference? And did it make sense sometimes to focus on time so much instead of focusing on the outcomes? So that was called the age of outcomes. And part of what led to that was that some people realized that you could spend so much time on a particular activity and still not produce the outcomes that you want, or still not produce the results that you want, but you're focused on the time. So in terms of putting in time, that is seen as very high performance. You put in 2 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours on a particular piece of work, but you didn't produce the results that you were expecting. And so do you penalize a staff or an employee saying, you didn't produce the results that I wanted? But the employee says, but I put in the time. You wanted time. I put in a full day's work. I was out the whole day and I didn't convert one client. So why would you blame me if I put in the time but we didn't get the results? You see, so that began to shift, and that shift has been happening slowly, where the focus is now not on how much time you're putting in. You can put in any amount of time, that's up to you, but what result are you producing? Is it the result that we want? Are you getting the conversions? You could spend as little time because you're very efficient and you have a strategy that works. That's okay. Versus someone else who's spending a lot of time and producing the results, you're going to be remunerated based on results versus based on time put in. So that shift has been happening, and it is really happening now. If you were not aware of that shift before, that's okay. Now you will be aware of it, or you're probably aware of it if you're a manager, a leader in your program, and your staff are working from home. Everybody is working from their homes now because of the public health measures to reduce the infection rates for COVID-19, that people are working from their homes. So how do you measure how much time people are putting into their work now that people are not in the office? You can't say, what time did you come in and what time are you leaving? Did you put in a full shift's worth of time into the work? So that has forced people to start to change and to think about outcomes instead. Okay, you have a day or two or whatever, but these are the results I want to see. I want this report completed by this deadline. I want 20 clients converted by this. So the targets are being set based on outcomes, not based on amount of time. So that you will spend 7 hours on this because you're supposed to work 7 hours, we're paying you for 7 hours a day. That conversation is shifting into what outcomes are you producing at the end of the day? What difference are you making for service recipients, for clients? If you're an employee who's internal facing, what difference are you making for your team based on the work that you're doing? So that is called outcomes. So whether we consciously made that choice to start to shift towards thinking about outcomes or not, it's already happening, and it's the way forward. It's how performance will be measured going forward. We're not going backwards, we're going forward. Some companies have already said that they are not bringing employees back to the offices even after the pandemic ends, because it just makes sense. It's reducing their overhead costs to have employees work from home, because they realized that the outcomes are still being achieved whether people are in the offices or not. And now they're starting to focus more on the outcomes than on time. And so that is a shift that is happening, and I just wanted to highlight that with this video, that it's the age of outcomes. So it's time to be aware of outcomes, to start to understand outcomes more, and to start to look into measuring outcomes, because that is going to be the way forward given what is happening around us right now. And so I hope that you found this video informational. I hope that it was helpful or insightful for you. I'll be posting more videos on performance improvement related topics, outcome measurement, outcome evaluation, target setting, performance measurement, and all other topics relating to this area. So subscribe to my channel so that you get an alert every time I post a video, and also you can visit my website and see if any of the information there is helpful for you. We've expounded on some of these, the outcome measurement, target setting, performance measurement, and all of that. We have courses going on if you're interested in learning more about these topics. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.